Hi, and welcome back to my vanilla playthrough series of Factorio on the version 1.0. My name is Icon, and this is episode 3 of our new factory. And today I'm going to start out with a starter base, talk about what that is, what it means to me, and how it can help you to get across the way between no factory and a real mega factory. So let's get started for this today. And if you haven't done it yet, feel free to subscribe to my channel and you won't miss any future content. So I didn't prepare as much as I wished I had time to prepare, because I noticed that if I would prepare everything, it would be just a too professional approach for this playthrough. I just noticed that I didn't even want that. So we keep handcrafting things because that's what the beginning of the game looks a lot like. You check out what kind of items you need and then you start producing them. I didn't talk about the crafting menu too much before, but that's mainly because I try to separate those chunks of knowledge between the episodes, because this game is very, very deep. So in the crafting menu, a few things are quite easy to achieve. If you want to produce a batch of 5, you go for a right click. If you want to produce a batch of everything that you can, you go for a shift left click. If you want to remove anything down here, you just right click once for removing 5, or shift right click, shift left click for removing the whole stack. So there's not much more to this, because with portions of 5 and single clicks, you can pretty much produce every amount of things that you want to have. So there's not much more about the crafting system apart from saying that a few items can't be crafted in your inventory, like bricks and metal plates, but I mentioned that before. So I prepared a lot of transport belts, but surely not enough. And today we're going to see where is good land to build a starter base, or where will we move forward in the series. And for that we have a radar machine. So I built one to begin with, and a radar does a really wonderful thing for you. It needs, of course, electricity, and once you have put it down, you see here we have now a bright outlining. And the radar gives me here the ability to see what happens inside this grid of bright outlining. But the radar does one more thing. Let's wait until it starts doing its magic. So I'm gonna sit here for a moment to wait until the radar does what the radar does. Maybe I'll just explain it. So the radar has here a sector scanning progress bar. Oh, it's almost through. So here we see one. So this is what the radar does for the longest time. There is, of course, a limit to that. I don't know how they work exactly. If they uncover forever, I think they do. I'm not sure. I never checked it out. The only thing I know, you want to have radar coverage on your active area of the base, because that's just awesome. And of course you want some panels online to scout out the area for you, to see where there's more minerals, because right now I have no clue where there's more minerals. I only see here the coal, the iron, the copper, and the stone. So my basic idea was I want to found my starter base on this spot here. So we're going to create a tag, call it starter base, give it an appropriate icon. I think I'm going to go for a wooden chest, because that's a proper image for what a starter base should be. So this is about the area where I want to be. But that also means this here is definitely not the area here. So the few things I have built up here will now wander with us while we're expanding the base and expanding the smeltering more, mostly. Because the smeltering is really, really important to increase that. Oh, I built up these little chests between this and the last episodes. They are limited to 2 slots each, to create myself some small buffer of iron to work with, to create mining drills and other things I need. So because we're going to need a terrible amount of mining drills to get this operations for today going. I hadn't found the time to prepare them all. So we're going to do the following. This here will be shut down completely because I want miners on that iron ore patch. instead of doing it all here, we're going to move the smeltering process upwards. So that's what we're going to do as soon as I have prepared enough machines, but I'm almost hitting the spot. So I prepare myself quite thoroughly for that, because once I start moving, my income of plates will be terminated for the time being. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Alright, so now's the thing I was talking about the last episode before with the ratios. I want to give you an example here. So these furnaces have a crafting speed of 1. That means the time to smelter a iron plate is 3.2 seconds. That means the furnace doesn't influence this time at all. It neither does it positively nor negatively. There are machines later, like the steel and electric furnace, that can positively increase the time ratio. But now let's check this out. We have 1 unit of iron ore every 3.2 seconds. I personally think that's a disgusting thing to calculate on your own. There is a calculator in the game included, but I wouldn't use it, honestly. There are several mods to do that on the market, and whatever is the thing, I mean, you can calculate it on your own. You just need some time, some sheet of paper, and then you can figure it out. But I personally love to use the MaxRateCalculator mod and the Helmod. These are the two tools I'm going to use alongside of the series to explain you guys how to get the most out of your machines. I wouldn't say they are mandatory, not at all, but whatever tool you use, I haven't found a single Factorio player so far that didn't start using some kind of tools to help them plan out their factories, because unless you're a complete lover of math and a absolute calculating geek, you will be happier if you let the machines do the calculating and you do the planning. So let's get started. This is a little tool. You use it like that. I left click that, and now I drag and drop this over the furnaces. Now I get a little readout. It shows me now the items per second. It shows me that these 5 furnaces will consume 1.5 units of iron ore per second, and they will output 1.5 units of iron plate per second in return. If I looked up these electric mining drills, they have a mining speed of 0.5 units per second. That means 6 of them produce 3 units of iron ore per second. And this means I could support double the amount of smelters with this amount of miners. I will do that. I will calculate a lot like this, because it's a lot easier to check out how things are going. The other tool I will be using is this one here. Helmod gives you a more deep and sophisticated way to calculate out towards a goal. Let's say we're going to add a recipe here, and we're going to add up the iron plate. This mod is very, very finicky and nasty to use, honestly. It took myself a while to use it, but it's so good to explain things. So if you want to understand how this mod works, I've made a tutorial about it. So check out the tutorial. I won't be explaining too much about the functionalities of Helmod and where to click in this series too much, because it's mostly here to explain you guys how ratios work and everything. Most of the time I'll prepare whatever we need, so don't mind me here fidgeting around. So with Helmod I can say, hey boys, I want to produce 5 units of iron plate per second, and this thing here now tells me I'll need 16 furnaces to do so. And this way I can determine my goals. Let's say I want to produce 10, then I see like this. With this mod, I'm going to be able to calculate towards certain goals, because if we look up the standard transport belt, it has a belt speed of 15 items per second. That means 15 items per second are the maximum amount of production a single yellow belt can transport. So basically, I already put in the numbers. This is what I would want to have one day. One long machinery of smelters getting fed in 15 units of iron ore per second, needs 30 miners, and needs 1.1 units of coal per second. That's only a little bit more than 2 miners. So today's goal will be not to produce, to build up such a huge machinery. I'm going to start out with half the amount. So we're going to build up a smeltering array of 24 furnaces, and this will be getting fed by 15 miners. So I think this is a very nice goal to show you guys how a big machinery, or well, half a big machinery in Factorio looks like, at least for starters. All right, so I think I have everything in my pocket. I have the amount of furnaces. Oh, I'm going to need a few more inserters, so we're going to produce them. But then I'm going to pack up my things. So I think the miners can stay. But apart from that, everything else, we're going to just hold the right mouse button and pick up all my stuff and go somewhere else. So there we go. Because I want to free up the iron ore patch as much as possible. So let's zoom in. Another funny thing that you can use, I didn't show it off yet, but it's a very, very important thing. Whenever you stand on a belt, you can just hold down the F button and you will soak in all the stuff that's lying on the belt. This is a very, very basic and common move you will see, and well, you will use it once and then you know why everybody uses it too. So I'm going to pack up my things here as well because, like I said, I want to free up this area, and I wanted to showcase one of these operations at least once, what it means like to pack up your things and go somewhere else, because this is something you will do in this game quite often, because it's just necessary, unless you're a godlike player that has made up his plans way before he builds the whole place. You can do that, but it's pretty hard. I'm not that kind of person. So between this and the other things, we're going to work around with new elements of logistics today too. So there's a lot of new content for this episode, I know, but there's no way to break it down in smaller portions. At least I didn't found any. I was breaking my noggin a little bit about that, but I didn't found any way. So picking up these, so you can just do the same here. Stand next to them, hold down the F button. And this is just holding down the right mouse button and soaking in that old stuff. Alright, so we're now packing up our things and going somewhere else. That's exactly what I had up in my mind. Alright. So, if I would have built this whole place on my, well, without explaining so much, honestly, I wouldn't have started down here in the ore patch. But I wanted to do this because when I first started out the game, I tried to reconstruct my own first steps here as much as I remembered them, because I felt like this will be the most authentic approach. Alright, so now I'm removing a few units of belt here too, and I'm going to remove the coal miners completely as well, because I'm going to think about how to put down the miners here as well in general. Because here's one finicky thing: this coal patch here will feed my power production and my smeltering, but luckily, as we have already seen in the planning tool, the amount of coal is quite minuscule. So this is just slightly more than one miner. It's a 1.2 electric miners necessary to maintain all this stuff we have planned here. So next up is the coal miners. Like I said, going to leave the upper half of this patch for the power production, and the lower half of this patch is going to be for the smeltering. So when you have occurrences like these where iron and coal intermixes it with each other, you see here in the readout on the right side that the expected resources would be iron ore and coal. Don't do that if you can avoid it. Most of the time you want to put them down like this to have a clean and pure output. Mixed outputs have to be managed, because if I would put it down like here, there will be like, well, every 10th piece of ore out of this machine will be iron, roughly. So I'm going to put them down like that. And I think we're going to use 4, because 4 miners will be absolutely sufficient for the mining ops here. And we're going to separate this ore patch at some time later. There are several ways to separate ore patches, but I don't want to go too deep into that topic today. This is something we're going to do somewhere between two episodes. All right, so next up is I have now my my fuel, and next up will be the ore. Alrighty, so let's pick it up like that. And now I want to think about how I'll run these belts. I'm going to run it like this, very close to the miner, because this area here, the green outlining, is going to be emptied by the mining machines anyways, so I'm not going to block anything with this placement of belts. And they're going to run alongside closely, because that's exactly what I want to have here. So there it goes. Let's turn them on. And this is going to be what makes the whole thing run. Alright, so I'm going to put down the smelters somewhere along this road, because there's no need to wait any longer here. Okay, so next up, let's pick up the planning tool. We're going to need 15 miners here, so these are only 6. It's definitely not enough. So we're going to pick them up as well. I just wanted to delay it until I have freed up everything. So with this thing here, we're going to connect 30 miners at some point on this patch, but not to begin with. Alright, so maybe maybe I'm not going to keep this belt. I'm sorry, I'm such an untidy player, but well, I guess you're going to get used to it. Untidiness, I mean. It's a factory after all. We're not going to win any prizes for cleanliness, but this is actually much more the thing I want to do here. So we're going to need 15 miners. Let's start here. I need to think about if I'm going to put lines up in this direction or rotate them like that and mine them up and down like that. It always depends on the form of the patch, how I make my decisions. So in this scenario, I think I'm going to do it like that. Yeah. So this is one solitary miner. This is the 15th miner, and now we're going to put up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and mirror that. So this is theoretically a supply of 15 units of 7.5 units of iron ore per second. But I'm going to connect here another miner as well, because otherwise this little patch here would be left out, and I don't want to let that happen. And besides that, this I want to expand this as soon as possible, because as soon as one of these miners has run dry his patch, like this one here is the perfect example. Only 403 units of iron ore on this one. I'm going to need more miners. So basically, if you have a strain on the machinery that needs 15 miners, build 20. It'll last longer, because you're going to not suffer an immediate loss of productivity once one of them patches runs dry. So what I'm doing here is now I'm measuring the line, and you see here I'm dropping down a few less efficient miners here. I'm well aware of that, but to me it's okay, because they're going to feed this starter array nevertheless. So I'm already planning out how the future miners will sit. And there's another thing that I want to show to you. If you want to do it like that, you can also pick up the miner, hold down the shift button, and you get that little ghost thingy on your cursor. And then I hold down the left mouse button, and now you see what I did here. And this way you can create shadows of those buildings to, well, if you want to plan it out like that, it might be useful. Right mouse button does remove all those ghosts. Later on, when we're going to have drones to do our bidding, these things will be getting more important again, but more of that when it becomes worth mentioning. All right, so what's now left to do is power it up, right? Okay. So I would normally, again, if I wouldn't be explaining it, I would preparing a complete array of 48 smelters immediately, because there's no pain in doing so. But like I said before, I want to do this series as a organic step-by-step process, because I don't want to do things that a beginner wouldn't do as much as I can. So here we see now what happens. This thing fills up nicely. We're getting more and more iron ore. So what happens here though is it's spreading uneven, and like there's definitely more miners putting up something on one side of the belt than there are miners putting down something on the other side of the belt. So in case you didn't notice it yet, this belt has two sides. It has a lower side and an upper side. So this lower side can carry 7.5 units of items per second, and this upper side transports 7.5 items per second. This will become very, very important in the future. Right now, it's really just a finicky detail I want to have talked about once, to make sure you have a good chance to understand what's happening later. I'm not going to go deeper into that this detail. Besides, I want to point out that this belt's power is split into a upper portion and a lower portion. So that's going to be important later. But for now, we're just going to build now happily or furnaces. So I'm going to start somewhere down here. So let's check out again. It was 24. All right. So I'm going to put them down like here. That's 6. That's 8. Oopsie. 10. And well, was that 12? I like to use this little planning tool to count out these things. All right, so these are 12. Going to do the following, a little trick. You can use hotkeys that might be, you might know from other programs. So Control C gives me a copy thing. So I drag this out now here, and what I get on my cursor now is a clone of what I did here. I'm dropping it down here and pressing Q again to get rid of it, and this way I get a stress-free way to place down these things. Don't need to count anymore. You can use Control C to copy things, and Control V to paste things. So if I go Control V here again, I have the same thing again. Can use that for plenty of other things. Later in the game, you get robots that start to build with these blueprints you place down, so you don't have to build things manually anymore. But that's we're far away from that. So what I'm going to do now is a very simple thing. Going to put it down like that, and this is the belt where the iron plates will live. There we go. So now, of course, we need the inserters again. I need one for the intake of iron. So here goes. So there's plenty of mods out there that give you access to robots earlier than the game would normally do. And I'm mentioning this because if this kind of gameplay feels tedious and troublesome and unfun to you to have hand place all these things, don't sweat. You can skip that part. In general, this game has mods for everything, and if there's anything you don't like, check out if there's a mod that can solve your problem, because I'm overall a player that my motto is gaming should be fun, because if you're playing a game and you're not having fun, then why are you wasting your time? Because a lot of people might say that gaming in itself is a waste of time, but no, it's time well spent for recreation. Wasted time is always a frustrating and depressing feeling. Just my 2 cents on that topic. So let's get it done. And let's see what we did here. So I have now the red inserters are picking up the coil, like I explained several times. The long bar is the pickup line and the arrow is the target. So we see here everything is configured correctly, and let's plug it in. So this setup of smelters is one I really like to do when I only have access to the small power poles. Having a gap between them like this is very, very nice to get a pretty stress-free build done. Alright, so now we're getting this here, and you see wonderful iron plates in a larger scale are getting done. And now the question is, do they need to look like this? No, they don't. So there are tools we haven't explored yet, and I'm going to start exploring them today with you. So there's the underground belt. Well, that's not what I'm looking at right now, but I'm going to put it onto the hot bar nevertheless. No, the thing I'm looking at right now is the splitter. The splitter is one of the most fascinating and versatile things in the game. What it does, it tries to split and or join transports belts cargo 1-to-1. Translates into this thing tries to mix up things evenly if possible. So what we can, and it has so many uses. I'm going to show you one of the most basic uses right away. So I'm going to put it down here. So as you see here, when you put things in, it tries now to spread the input evenly onto 2 belts. And one of the most basic things to do here would be this. And now we have the iron plates on 2 sides of the belt. This is the most basic use of the splitters, and more experienced players would have a ton of more uses for that thing right now, but we're going to leave it like that. This is now a heavy-duty transport belt filled with iron. Compared to what I had before, this is awesome. Like now I'm having a output of 7.5 units of iron plate per second. We had 1.5 when I started. That's 6 times the amount. So in that short time, we build up a heavy machinery like that. Of course, I want to have that same thing for copper going, and I'm going to produce that between this and the next episode, because it's more of the same old. We're going to build more smelters, we're going to build the miners, so I don't want to bloat this video artificially, because you already saw what I did there. This patch, we're going to work on it like I did with the other one. I'm trying to fit in around 20 miners onto that, and then I'm going to pipe the copper ore towards that direction to get the sand ball rolling, and I want to prepare that between this and the next episode. And then we're going to lay down the foundations for the starter base, which will be living up here. And we're having a strong input then of iron plates, copper plates. I can pipe the stone towards here if I need it as well, and that's going to be a very nice and powerful start into a real factory. Alright friends, so thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for those motivating and awesome comments so far. I feel so flattered, and I hope this episode was helpful again. And feel free to ask questions, feel free to comment whatever we want to do, and most importantly, feel free to subscribe if you haven't done it already. It's really helping me, and it's making me super happy. You can't believe how happy every single subscription does make me. Anyways, I wish you a very good time, and I hope We're going to see each other on episode 4 again. Like I said, starter base. We're going to build big things, and I'm looking forward to it. Until then, goodbye.